You know how sometimes you feel that your vehicle isn't performing as well as it could? And most people, I think, just go straight onto eBay and buy themselves a performance booster and connect it to their battery because that really helps. This particular one is called a Pivot Mega Raizin High Capacity System and Battery Performance Monitor. And this one has the splendid capacity of 21,000 microfarads, which I'm not convinced about. And I think this is a clone of a Japanese product. It's got a price label stuck to it that says 13,440 Japanese yen, I'm guessing, which is the equivalent when translated on Google currency conversion to approximately £100, which would make this very expensive. Fortunately, I did not pay anywhere near that. This came off eBay for £12.89. UK Universal Pivot Mega Raizin Fuel Saver Voltage Stabilizer Regulator Purple came from a seller in the UK called Wonderland House. I think it's just a Chinese warehouse. So I'll get the box out of the way. The box has various hype on it, and then it's got instructions for the installation. Very basic, which shows, yeah, in other languages. That's fine. It does come with British instructions. So it comes with a packet of hardware, including a new, hold on, let's tip it out, including a new terminal that you can then mount onto your battery. It's made of aluminium. That's no great deal because it's probably not really going to be passing much current anyway. And it also comes with these cables. I think the idea is that at various points in your electrical system, you're supposed to bond things to the chassis and it improves things, but this cable is extraordinary. If you're an electrician, you get used to just picking up cable and knowing what a certain diameter is going to feel like. And this looks as though it's got big cores inside, but it must be aluminium. It does have continuity from one end to the other. Hold on, I'm just gonna chop an end off here. It's solid. Hold on, I'm just going to look up the end of the cable. It appears to all intents and purposes, I'm guessing from the weight, to be aluminum. Lots of thick insulation for extra drama. I'm not sure those will help much, but anyway, that's beside the point, because the bit we're interested in here, and it's a box that contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 capacitors plus a little filtering capacitor, but most importantly of all, this is actually a useful feature. It's got a little digital readout. You can see it's shimmering away as they usually do. It says 12 volts, but here's the interesting thing. After a certain length of time, it will cut off. It runs for about 10 seconds, and then it goes into standby mode for saving the sort of battery. And at that point, it's still drawing 7 milliamps, so it's not saving the battery quite as much as it could. However, if you then start the car and the voltage to the battery dips in the process and then goes back up again, it will then alternate between the current battery voltage and the voltage it dipped to. And when it's flashing like that, it shows what it actually dipped to. And in a way, that actually means that the little module in here is actually quite an interesting thing because it does give an indication of the state of your battery, what the voltage drops to under load of the starter. However, let's take a look at the claimed features. Descriptions: 100% brand new and high quality. Voltage stabilizer with digit display. It does indeed have that. A voltage, well, it's got a digit display. I suppose this purple thing, Anyway. Increases torque at low and middle speeds. No, it doesn't. Stabilizes idling and improves engine kickover. No, it doesn't. Improves engine response. No, it doesn't. Increases headlight brightness. No, it doesn't. Improves fuel economy. No, it doesn't. Improves battery life. It will show you things about battery life, but doesn't improve it. Improves bass sound. Not at this level. Some audio systems use big fat multi-farad capacitors to provide an extra, shall we say, extra local reservoir of energy when they're drawing really high current peaks in the bass. So that would work there, but not in this instance. Digital voltage display, yes. With 3 earth cables, yes. Okay. Right. I do notice there's this sort of metal thing in the back. I'm not sure what that's for, if it's to cover something else, or if it's just maybe for a bigger cable or multiple cables. Maybe it's a universal case, or maybe it's to show when the warranty has been violated. Let's violate the warranty. I'm going to unplug it from the supply I've got it on. And I'm going to pop the lid off it and we'll take a look inside. We'll measure those capacitors and see what they clock in at. I could theoretically measure it by putting it over the leads, and I've tried that, but I can't guarantee the result I got was accurate. It showed roughly 1000 microfarad for them all, which is well below the 12,000 quoted. But that might be being affected by the rest of the circuitry, because the capacitance meters are not that great at measuring capacitors in circuit. Other circuit components can actually affect their reading. But we'll chop some of the capacitors out and we'll check them. Okay. No, that little thing is not a warranty void thing. It is just a little metal cover over a bigger slot. I think they've got other applications for this. What do we have here? We've got the terminals coming in, going onto big lugs. We've got a filter capacitor. The terminals, this one goes to all the capacitors, and it's got a nice big soda splash there. It also goes up to this end. Where is the connection? Oh, there it is. It connects onto this. Oh, wait. Oh, is that? No, it's not. I'm talking crap. I thought that was a current shunt for a moment, but there's no reason because it doesn't measure current. I'll just remove the thing that always annoys me, these. They always leave the film over the display. It's actually better contrast when you peel it off. That's more for protection during manufacture. The display in the front. I've been distracted. I was looking at the circuitry inside the capacitors. The display in the front has a little microcontroller, Holtec HT66F004. HT66F004. That will be a generic little microcontroller. There's a voltage regulator, local smoothing, decoupling, a trimmer pot for adjusting it, calibrating it. And this little thing will have a analog to digital converter in it, which it will either use the supply voltage to the chip as a voltage standard, say 5 volts or 3.3 volts. And then it will use a divider from the 12 volts coming in, divider network of resistors, to bring it within that range of the analog digital converter, and then it will use that to actually determine what the voltage is. It's reasonable enough. It's neat enough little circuit board. This bit is useful in its own right. The one terminal here, which is it? It's the black terminal, is going straight to all those capacitors. The red terminal is going via a couple of fuses, one on either side, that you can't change. This is probably for when people connect it back to front. And this one's going to these two capacitors. And is it going to anymore? It's going to 1, 2, and this one is going to this capacitor, and this. So this fuse is feeding these 3 capacitors on this side. These 3, and the other one's feeding these 2, and they've just basically used capacitors to fit. So let's whack one out. I'll note which is which. The positive, that's it. The capacitor is actually stuck down on double-sided tape. Okay, I'll have to note that this one, because they've basically taken the cover off existing capacitors, presumably, I'm just going to put a red dot on the side that should be positive. And then we'll bring in the capacitance tester. Ooh, let's be optimistic. What's it going to be? I'm using the dedicated capacitance tester because that's all it does. It just measures capacitance. The capacitor value is... Oh. What? Really? One moment, please. Let's get this open. Is there anything inside it? it's like dry. There is something inside. Is this a message? It's like, haha. I was getting capacitance. Well, there are connectors, but it's bone dry. Okay. That's not going to work very well as a capacitor. Basically what we're saying here is I've been conned and it's not going to boost the performance of the car. It never was going to boost the performance of the car in the first place. Let's get that one out. I'm not really even going to bother about the polarity anymore. Hold on. Is the little one doing anything? Because I was measuring capacitance across something. Oh, here we go, here we go. The little one in the middle is roughly 1000 megafarad, which is what I was measuring from the outside, which means the big capacitors are just for show. This one's not going to measure anything. Dry. They're all fake. Dry. Nothing. Weird. I mean, there's economy and there's economy, but that's a bit cheeky, and it's kind of ironic that the tiniest, the smallest capacitor is the only one that's real. Dearie, dearie me. Okay, so what about the little filtering capacitor? And this, you know, this little capacitor here will have a filtering effect. It's 1 microfarad, 250 volt. It's just a common capacitor, like you might find a capacitive dropper, and this will still work. It's just going to be a little voltage display now, which is pretty much what it was before. Right, so that's actually worse than I was expecting. Excellent, that's exactly what we want. So the idea is that you connect this to your car battery and you stick it on the side with double-sided tape pads, and the real use of this, the one function it's going to have, is that useful voltage latching feature, the fact that it measures the voltage dip when you start your car and then it comes back up again, it logs it and displays it for a while. The instructions are as you'd expect with most of these quacky type products. Let's just zoom down out of there. Let's take the exposure off a little bit just to avoid glare. It comes with lots of cautions and warnings, because all these quack products do, because it instills a sense of realness to say, oh, be careful, it's dangerous if done wrong. The first caution says, do not work in areas where there is excessive exhaust. Due to vehicle exhaust emission, poisoning or fire may result in a damage to humans. Then it goes on about safe precautions, stalling, saying avoid the fan or belt. Then it says, please secure fasten in a stable place, avoid the fan or belt. Do not crush the cable, avoid the fan or belt. Do not allow water to come into contact unit, and the product is for 12 volt cars. Stabilise voltage and know when battery performance is reduced. Right, okay, the only stabilisation it's going to have that slight filtering effect in the supply, which is going to, you know, most devices have a capacitor built in for electrical noise. It's, I don't know, it's odd. It's going the full hog. It's doing that sort of dramatic thing. But then the one bit, when you read it, it kind of goes to the voltage testing thing, and it kind of justifies itself by saying that's the real function of this unit, is the fact it can monitor for a failing battery. And to be fair, yes, it can, because if when you start your car, initially when you install this, if you've got a good battery, if you start your car and the voltage on this drops, because it logs the lower voltage, if it drops to, say, from 12 volts, it drops to, say, about 10 volts. And then later on, you know, a few months down the line, your car's giving problems and you start it and it drops from about 12 volts down to 8 volts, then you know the battery impedance is increasing. Yeah, strange. So it would be useful in that sense, but it does itself have a slight parasitic draw of about 7 milliamps. I think it's really just for show. It's nice that they added that sort of feature into it, but it really is just a gimmick. Well, there you go. So it's a lovely case. It's got all the big chunky wires you'd expect. It's got brackets, aluminium brackets for earth. I'm not sure aluminium is a great metal in vehicles. It's got a pile of fake capacitors. It's got one dinky little real capacitor, which, well, 1000 megafarad. It's kind of outsized for what it is, for even that. And that's it. I was expecting those cans to be empty. Why have they even put the contents of electrolytic capacitor? Just incidentally, this is what's inside an electrolytic capacitor. It's nice to have one that's completely dry. It's never going to fail because it's dry. It's not going to dry out because it's already happened. That's weird. Strange. This aluminium, by the way, is coated. It's textured. And then an oxide layer is built up in it during the forming of the battery, where they just trickle a charge in to just create an oxide layer as insulation. And then you've got the porous separator, which is this bit here, and then insulated separator. No, this must be the insulated separator. Strange, very strange, but interesting to take apart. But yeah, save your money. It doesn't work.